We signed the papers on a Friday. It was the happiest day of my life. My wife, Sarah, and I had been saving for 7 years. We lived in cramped apartments, saving every penny, dreaming of a yard where our golden retriever, Buster, could run and where our future kids could play. We finally found it, a beautiful colonial in a quiet cul-de-sac. It had a massive oak tree in the front and, most importantly, a pristine, 6-foot wooden privacy fence enclosing the backyard. The seller told us the neighbors were quiet. That was the understatement of the century. We spent the first Saturday moving boxes. It was exhausting but exhilarating. I remember standing on the back deck with a cold beer, watching the sun go down over the fence line, thinking, this is it. This is home. I noticed the neighbor's house to the left. It was a bit run down, peeling paint, overgrown bushes, but I didn't judge. Maybe he was elderly. The next morning, Sunday, I was out in the yard throwing a ball for Buster. The morning air was crisp. I felt like the king of my castle. Then, I heard a slamming screen door. I looked over the fence. A man was marching toward the property line. He looked to be in his 60s, wearing a stained white tank top and cargo shorts. His face was a mask of pure rage. Let's call him Frank. Hey! Frank screamed. He didn't wave. He pointed a finger that looked like a dried twig right at my face. You the new owner? I put on my best neighborly smile. Yes, sir. Up. My wife and I just moved in yesterday. Nice to meet. I don't care who you are, Frank interrupted, spitting on the ground. I care about that fence. It's on my land. I blinked, confused. Excuse me. The fence, he yelled, slapping the wood planks with his hand. The previous owner was a thief. He built this monstrosity 2 feet over the property line. I told him to move it. He died before I could sue him. But now you're here. I tried to stay calm. Sir, we had a survey done when we bought the house last month. The title company cleared everything. The fence is actually 6 inches inside my property line. Frank's face turned purple. Surveys. Lawyers. It's all a scam. I've lived in this house for 35 years. I know where the line is. The line is by that stump. He pointed to a rotting tree stump that was clearly 5 feet into my yard. If that were the line, I said, trying to be logical, then my sprinkler system would be in your yard. It is in my yard. Frank shrieked. And I'm tired of looking at this ugly wood. You have 1 week. 1 week for what? I asked, my smile completely gone now. To tear it down, Frank hissed, leaning over the fence so close I could smell stale coffee and cigarettes. You tear this fence down and build it where it belongs. If you don't, I will. And I'll send you the bill for the labor. You can't touch my fence, I said, my voice shaking slightly. That's destruction of property. It's my land. Frank screamed. I'll take a chainsaw to it. Try me, city boy. You don't know who you're messing with. He turned around and stormed back to his house, muttering obscenities. He slammed his back door so hard I thought the glass would shatter. I stood there in my new backyard, the tennis ball still in my hand. Buster nudged my leg, wanting to play, but the joy was gone. I looked at the fence, the sturdy, beautiful fence that kept my dog safe, and suddenly it didn't look like a feature. It looked like a battle line. I went inside and told Sarah. She thought I was exaggerating. He's just a grumpy old man, she said. He's blowing off steam. But later that night, as we were trying to sleep in our new master bedroom, we heard a loud thud against the side of the house. Then another. I looked out the window. Frank was in his yard, throwing garbage bags over the fence into our garden. I realized then that this wasn't just a grumpy neighbor. We had moved next to a maniac. The next 3 days were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Frank didn't just throw garbage, he escalated. He set up a lawn chair right at the fence line and just watched. Every time Sarah went into the kitchen, she could see him staring through the window. We stopped letting Buster out in the backyard. We felt like prisoners in our own dream home. But I thought he was all bark and no bite. I thought the chainsaw comment was just bluster. On Wednesday, I came home early from work. I pulled into the driveway at 3:30 p.m. As soon as I turned off the engine, I heard it. The distinct, high-pitched scream of a two-stroke engine. My stomach dropped to my knees. I didn't even grab my bag. I ran around the side of the house to the backyard. The scene was pure chaos. Frank was there. He was standing in a pile of sawdust and wood chips. He had taken a chainsaw to the corner post of my fence. A 10-foot section of the beautiful cedar privacy fence was already lying on the ground, exposing my yard to his overgrown jungle of a property. He was revving the saw, preparing to cut the next post. "Hey, stop!" I screamed, sprinting across the lawn. "What are you doing?" Frank turned to look at me. He didn't turn the saw off. He just smiled, a wide, toothless, terrifying grin. "I told you," he yelled over the engine noise. "I told you to move it. You didn't listen. Now I'm reclaiming my land." He lowered the saw toward the next rail. "Get away from my fence." I yelled, pulling out my phone. "I'm calling the police." "Going." Frank laughed, revving the engine again. "They can't arrest a man for gardening on his own property." I backed away, terrified he might slip, or worse, aim the saw at me. I dialed 911. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped the phone once in the grass. 911, what is your emergency? My neighbor is attacking my house with a chainsaw. He's destroying my fence. He has a weapon. We have officers en route. Are you in immediate danger? He has a chainsaw. I screamed. Yes. Frank managed to cut through a second panel before the sirens wailed. When the cruisers screeched to a halt in front of the house, Frank finally turned the saw off. He didn't run. He just stood there, hands on his hips, looking like he had just finished a hard day's work. 2 officers ran into the backyard, hands on their holsters. "Drop the saw," the lead officer yelled. Frank put the chainsaw down calmly. "Afternoon, officers. Just doing some landscaping." "He destroyed my fence." I shouted, pointing at the wreckage. "Look at this. That's thousands of dollars of damage." The officers separated us. One talked to Frank, the other talked to me. I showed the officer the survey on my phone, the official document from the closing. "Look," I pleaded. "The property line is here. He is 5 feet onto my land, destroying my property." The officer sighed. "Sir, I see the damage. But he is claiming this fence was built illegally on his land. He says he has a survey from 1990 that proves it." "He's lying." I said, "This is current." "I believe you," the officer said, lowering his voice. "But without a court order or a surveyor present right now to stake the line, this is a civil dispute regarding property boundaries. I can't arrest him for destruction of property if he genuinely believes it's his property. So he can just cut my fence down?" I asked, incredulous. "No," the officer said. He walked over to Frank. I heard him give Frank a stern warning. "Put the saw away, sir. If you cut 1 more inch of wood, I will arrest you for disturbing the peace and disorderly conduct. This needs to be settled in court." Frank smirked at me. "See you in court, neighbor." The police left. They filed a report, but they didn't take him away. I stood there, looking at the gaping hole in my backyard. I could see right into Frank's house now. I could see his dirty kitchen. I felt completely exposed. Frank walked up to the property line, where the fence used to be, and spat on my grass. "This is just the beginning," he whispered. "I'm taking back the whole yard." I realized then that the police couldn't help me. The law was too slow, and I was living next to a ticking time bomb. That night, I didn't sleep. I boarded up the hole in the fence with plywood and zip ties, but I could still feel Frank watching me. The next morning, I went on the offensive. I called the most reputable, expensive surveying company in the state. I told them I needed an expedited boundary stakeout and a formal encroachment report. I paid an extra $500 for them to come out the next day. Frank watched the survey crew like a hawk. He stood on his porch, drinking a beer at 10 a.m., yelling at them. "You're wasting your money," he screamed. "That stake goes 5 feet to the right. You're incompetent." The lead surveyor, a guy named Mike who looked like he wrestled bears for fun, ignored him. He used high-precision GPS equipment and metal detectors to find the original iron pins buried deep underground from when the subdivision was built in the 70s. When Mike finished, he knocked on my door. He had a strange look on his face. "So," Mike said, holding a clipboard. "Good news and bad news." "Give me the bad news first," I said, bracing myself. "The bad news is that your neighbor is extremely annoying." "And the good news?" "The good news," Mike smiled, "is that he's wrong. Really wrong." Mike walked me to the property line. He pointed to a bright orange stake with a neon flag. It wasn't where the fence used to be. It was 3 feet past the fence, into Frank's yard. "Your fence wasn't on his property," Mike explained. "It was actually set back 3 feet inside your own line. You own all of this." He walked further down the line. He pointed to Frank's rotting tool shed. "And see that shed?" Mike asked. "It's entirely on your land. And see that concrete patio he poured? Half of it is on your land." I felt a smile spread across my face. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who just found the nuclear launch codes. "Are you sure?" I asked. 100% certified, Mike said. "I'll put it in writing." The lawsuit. I didn't talk to Frank. I went straight to a real estate attorney. We filed a lawsuit for destruction of property, the fence; trespassing, ejectment, to force him to remove his shed and patio. A process server handed the papers to Frank 3 days later. I watched from my window. Frank threw the papers on the ground, just like he threw my fence. But you can't throw away a court date. The courtroom. 2 months later, we stood before a judge. Frank represented himself. He brought a hand-drawn map on a napkin as his evidence. I brought the certified survey, the photos of the chainsaw destruction, and the police report. The judge looked at Frank's napkin. Then he looked at my certified map. "Mr. Frank," the judge said, "do you have a licensed survey to refute this?" "I have my eyes." Frank shouted, "I've lived there for 30 years. "That's not how property law works," the judge said. "According to this document, you destroyed a fence that was 3 feet inside the plaintiff's property. Furthermore, your shed is trespassing." The verdict. Judgment for the plaintiff. The defendant is ordered to pay $8,500 for the fence replacement. The defendant is also ordered to remove the encroaching shed and patio within 30 days at his own expense, or the plaintiff may remove them and bill the defendant. Frank turned purple. "I can't afford that. I'm on a fixed income." "Then you shouldn't have taken a chainsaw to your neighbor's property," the judge said coldly. The aftermath. Frank didn't remove the shed. So, on day 31, I hired a demolition crew. I stood on my deck with a coffee, watching the bulldozer crush Frank's shed. It was the most beautiful sight I have ever seen. I built a new fence. This time, I put it right on the actual property line, reclaiming my 3 feet of yard. Frank put his house up for sale a month later. He couldn't pay the judgment, so I placed a lien on his property. When the house sells, the first check goes to me. The new neighbors moved in last week. They are a nice young couple with a baby. They asked about the fence. "It's a nice fence," I told them. "It marks the line where sanity begins."